as soon as a person truly realizes that he is not the mind or the body, but this eternal self, then all other worldly attachments fall away.
Nowadays, we have an opportunity to have these truths more readily available to us. And these truths will help you be the break of the chain in this pattern of problems and things that you've seen. I want to be the one who stops that forever. I want to be the one who changes this forever.
Most people, they ask the right question and they take that journey, but then they just park their car in there. They're like, it didn't work. Nothing happened. Mm-hmm. You now have to then go and knock on the door.
Acting on emotions as guides to truth. Stillness. Surrendering to what is. Seeking. Using my gifts with purpose. Light. This is the emotional blueprint.
Let's talk about the ego now.
The ego.
The ego. What is the ego? I don't claim to be the expert on this, but I think there's a lot of misunderstandings on what it actually is. What's your initial thoughts, though, on like what is the ego?
I don't know. It's like a hard one to put into words.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's like the equivalent of like the natural man kind of a thing. Like a...
Yeah, some more of the Christian term in the Bible to describe the ego is like the natural man. Mm. I tend to be drawn more towards that than the word ego. And this might just be my personal preference, but in Buddhism and other Eastern teachings, they talk a lot about the ego as this like evil part of us that is innate. It's almost like this separate evil spirit inside of us or something. I do think that there's some truth to that. But what's always made sense to me is we have this corruptible physical body.
Yeah.
And then evil has access. Satan, another word for the ego maybe is Satan. Evil is allowed access to our physical body. Now, it can't break our bones and cause us to get sick. Otherwise, we'd all just be dying. Yeah. But the main form of the ego or Satan or the main form of evil is thoughts. In the most simplest term, the main component of the ego or Satan is thoughts. And the ego or the natural man, I think a good way to view it is it's everything that is not us. Okay, so our physical body is not actually us. Thoughts are not actually us. Emotions, our interpretation on some of our emotions is not actually us. I am not actually a therapist. That's my job. Mm-hmm. That's not who I am. I am not a father. I am, but that's not. So it's many things. I think it's thoughts. When we identify with thoughts, that's the ego or the natural man. I like the term natural man better because it also then describes the natural man. Think of like apes or monkeys, like the animalistic tendencies that come with having a body. Mm-hmm. Is competitiveness, this need to be better, the alpha, I need to be better than other people. Mm-hmm. That's the animalistic part of the natural man. So in Buddhism, the ego, I guess that does kind of check out as I'm thinking more about it, this evil part of us or whatever, but it's our body and the tendencies of our body. Sex is a natural tendency. It's the seeking to be more than other people. These are all natural poles that each one of us have. And if we're not aware of them, if we're not living in presence and in spirit, they will take over. So a good way to view it is internally within us, we have this pure spirit, but then we have the natural man that has all of these drives to be better, all these things that we just mentioned. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think a beautiful research and example of this, we might have talked about this before, is the studies that they've done in Japan with suicides. particularly with middle-aged men, how they were wondering why the suicide rates were going up so high in men in their 50s. And after looking into it, what they were finding out was a lot of these men were getting fired from their jobs and then going into the forest and killing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So why were they doing that? Well, Japan has a culture that contributes to some of that, the shame and the expectation to keep a job your whole life. And if you don't, you bring all this shame to your family and your community. But regardless of that, I think the underlying principle is they actually believed that who they were was their job. I am an engineer. This is my identity. You take that away from them.
They are nothing. That's how they feel, right?
And yep, exactly. And that's how disconnected we have to be spiritually or from our own spirit. No one kills themselves feeling hopeful. No one kills themselves feeling connected to who they really are. Doesn't happen.
Couldn't.
So you see what Satan or when we're left to our own devices without any spiritual correction, you see what starts to happen. And this is the collective at large. This is what's happening to our society at large. The more disconnected we become from our spirit and from being present, the more competitive things get. It's just craziness, man.
So much confusion, so much less empathy. I think a lot of people have probably heard like they have that like short story of the grandfather who's telling his son the story of the two wolves that live inside of every man.
You should tell it. I don't think you should tell that.
It's a short story. It's essentially that every person has two wolves living inside them. There's a good wolf and the bad wolf. And every day you get to choose which one you feed that day. And whichever one gets fed most will obviously become strongest. And that's the same with the ego versus the true self or the spirit. I think that it's so dangerous because the more you allow the lies to be present, the easier it is to believe. And those come from the ego side or the bad wolf or whatever, those intellectual thoughts that come in and confuse you and derail you away from who you're supposed to be or be doing. Eventually, like it's kind of easy to get tricked. The lies get better and better sometimes, and then you start to get confused on where the truth lies.
100%. It's this commitment to go back to the present. And so I think the most common, we've talked about this deception of Satan or the ego before, this belief that these are my thoughts occurring.
Yeah.
That's obviously the most common. So in the most simplest form, ego is thoughts and Satan is thoughts. And it's the enemy of what you truly want in your life. It's like as soon as it's like when a person, again, this goes back to the pain thing because this has to be an experience. All it takes sometimes is one person having this experience of like, oh my gosh, like I'm aware of what these crazy thoughts coming in and I'm watching them happen. Who is the person that's watching those thoughts?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's me. That's the true me. That's my spirit. Whoa. I love the term, the spiritual gift that describes this is the gift of discernment. I love that word, discernment. It has a deep rooted meaning of a separation from, it's a separation from what's real and what's not real, from what's true and what's not true. That's the goal. And so that is why spiritual practices really matter, is because the whole purpose of them is to connect with God within us, God without, outside. It's a reminder of who we are so that we don't get lost.
You kind of have to remind yourself where the line is, where the separation is, so you don't accidentally step over and maybe walk on the wrong side for a couple days and didn't notice, like that kind of stuff it's easier than it sounds to get confused in things in your own thoughts.
What I have seen in myself and in others is I love this visual of the ego or Satan shooting like fiery darts at you. Like let's say you're on the top of a cliff and someone down there just shooting these fiery darts. But if you're not connected consistently and you're not intaking truth consistently, you have no protection or very little protection. And these fiery darts can hit you. And like you said, be very cunning. I think I shared that story last time about, my ex-girlfriend, the thoughts that were coming up with that.
Yeah.
It's just a crazy, it's nuts. So those fiery darts can hit us. And so we need that. I just imagine like if we're spiritually connected it's the shield.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things, if you follow the spiritual path, whatever that looks like, and you continue to be sincere in following it, that protection can get greater and greater. We still are going to have thoughts come in, but man, I think we are able to see it way more for what it is.
Totally.
As soon as a person truly realizes that he is not the mind or the body, but this eternal self, then all other worldly attachments fall away. We don't care about money. We're not seeking money. We're seeking something more important than that. This is a process. I feel like, I shared this experience about a year and a half ago of realizing that I was still attached to money to some degree. And it took losing my friend to help me to realize, oh my gosh, like I still have this attachment to money. And how do I let go of that? Well, I'm aware of it. So awareness is the first step. And then I had to really commit to being more still in my life and just more extra connected spiritually. And
Mm-hmm.
there might be more to it than that. I think it might be involving letting go of some emotions or changing our perspective. But yeah. Any other thoughts though, man, on the ego? It's just a good reminder, I think.
Super good. It's just inspired a lot of thinking for myself and stuff about that. I think a lot about that story that you shared the last time about your ex-girlfriend, and how it's just how tricky it can be if you're not present enough to listen and checking what's coming in and out of your mind, I like to believe that your mind is, like you said earlier, that you can't be in the past or the present or the future all simultaneously. It's one or the other one at a time.
Right.
And your mind is exactly that way with your thoughts, that it's like a stage and you choose what's performing on the stage at any given time. But to not watch is a dangerous game.
To not watch is a dangerous game. Because if we're not watching,
A new act could show up on the stage and you might not even know it.
Mm-hmm.
That's something to keep an eye on.
We've been talking today about like secrets, like this transformational secret of feeling pain and what happens afterwards for people. This is another one of those secrets of life.
Totally.
Of being still and being present and in the moment. We are in our spirit when we're so the food of the ego is thoughts, and can also be pain as well, and identifying with pain. Basically the food of the ego is thoughts, and then it's also an identification with anything that is not who we really are. An identification with I'm really a dad. It's like and that's an interesting one, because I am a father. But if I start to identify that, I think the principle of this is, if I start to identify with that as who I am, anytime our identity is based off of something that can change.
Exactly.
Our identity, our worth is also going to change with that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, and I don't want to say it makes it more likely to happen. But this is when people experience loss. This is when they really lose themselves. Yeah. Because they're attached. Their identity is that of being in a marriage. So their wife dies. And they are lost. They cannot recover. It's very difficult for them to recover. They've lost who they are.
Yeah.
Just like in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the unhealthy reason why a lot of people struggle a lot more with loss. And it's so important for us to be compassionate about that and not judgmental. It's like they just don't know. They just actually believe that who I am is is this, and thoughts have created that. The ego, Satan has convinced them of that, and they just don't know.
Yeah.
Because if they knew, they would do something different. So this is my final thought about the ego, and then I do want to talk about loss a little bit more. I think that'd be cool. Is, okay, what's the benefit of being aware of Satan, or being aware of the ego, or being aware of these tendencies? One of the unspoken benefits that's not talked about enough is it really can provide a lot of compassion for us, because it's almost always the reason why people are doing things that are messed up. It's the ego has taken over. It's not who they really are. Because if they knew,
they would never.
They wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
If they were, all of us, and just relating, it's like sometimes I'm taken over by the ego or thoughts, and then, oh, shoot, I kind of got lost for a few seconds or a few minutes or a few days. Hopefully not a few days. With practice, you can really shorten that time of how long am I getting lost for? You can really shorten that quite a bit with practice. But it creates so much compassion, because people are either acting out of pain, unresolved pain, or this ego or thoughts, and it's like
they're getting duped.
Can really help. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about loss and relationships for a second. So this is what I want to ask you. What are some of the biggest mistakes people make when they experience divorce or a breakup or loss? What are some of the biggest mistakes people make?
Let's look into my life. What are some of the biggest mistakes I've made? One of them is sitting in it for too long, like sitting in your thoughts and feelings for too long about it. Those can stretch on for days. Those little thinking sessions that you do that when you're in loss.
Gosh, yeah.
And they're pretty detrimental to you in feeling better and coming to terms with things and having understanding. I think, I'm having a hard time coming up with more.
That's a good one, though. Not for sure. I think what's really interesting is like they do research all the time about like what's the most traumatic thing that people experience in their life. And what's consistently at the top is like divorce is often like number one. And then number two is like death.
What? How?
Exactly.
What's happening in the divorce then to make it worse than death?
Because, like, for example, like, okay, if my wife died, that'd be traumatic.
Totally.
But what's often more traumatic for people is divorce. Well, like, why?
Because they like chose.
Not only did you lose someone that you might really love or care about, but there's an element of rejection to it.
Exactly.
It's like you're not just getting stabbed with a knife; you're getting stabbed and then twisting it. Yeah, just a little twisty.
And they whisper like, "You deserve that," and then it's like, "Dang, that hurts."
That's pretty dark, man.
Yeah, it's heavy.
You took that a little too far.
All right, redact that.
Just kidding. But yeah, that rejection piece is difficult. So the most consistent suffering that I see people go through as a therapist is they continue the same pattern in relationships over and over again, leading to loss after loss after loss. So what's the biggest mistake that people make when they experience some kind of a loss or divorce? They do not take the time to surrender and feel their pain. And this is so culturally driven, especially it's very culturally driven with the stages of grief. If we look at some of the stages of grief, it's like denial, anger, bargaining, depression. All of these stages of grief, what they all have in common is they are a rejection of the pain. I'm not willing to surrender and feel the pain. And what's crazy in our culture is people talk about this all the time. Like, oh, you're just going through the stages of grief. It's like, you don't have to. Yeah. And it's fine if you do, like there's no judgment, but those aren't real. Those don't have to be real for you. So the fact that someone developed these stages and it's so popularly accepted, it just validates what we're saying, that culturally still people really don't know how to feel pain. And it is a secret. And that's why we're doing this podcast. We want it to be less of a secret so that you don't have to go through these stages of grief and bargaining and denial and anger and all this and depression. The cool thing is with loss is, okay, let's say your life is crazy, and you're not balanced in your life, but you experience loss. That becomes a current emotion. So you don't necessarily have, it's still important to try to have balance and all that other stuff, but that becomes current. And so you can still actually access that pain within a certain amount of time before your body stores it as past, and where you have to then, it makes it harder.
Yeah.
It's like it gives you a window.
Grace period to work on yourself.
Your spirit does that.
Yeah,
God does
it's
that.
already set aside for you, so to speak.
Mhm.
It gives me this image of like everyone who's ever been born, everyone that you're related to, your ancestors and everything, we're like links in a chain that continue down through this family tree that you're creating. And through that, everyone deals with their own issues, and they take whatever they glean from the teachings of their parents, and they try and come to grips with the things that happened in their life, and then they eventually pass those on to their kids, and then the next kids, and the next kids. And everybody's, trying to do their best, and they're trying to come to terms with who they are and find their identity and all that stuff. And each of those links, very few of our ancestors, I think. No, I can't even say that. But I feel like nowadays we have an opportunity to have these truths more readily available to us. And these truths will help you be the break of the chain in this pattern of problems and things that you've seen. I know I've seen a lot of those things in my family. I've seen tons of great things that I really admire in my family that I've learned lessons from. And there are some things that I'm like, I want to be the one who stops that forever. I want to be the one who changes this forever. And
the chain breaker.
Exactly. And
what a cool title.
That's what this is an opportunity to be, is in something that's so commonplace. Doing it wrong is so commonplace. Here's the knowledge and the know-how to be able to do something different, to make an impact in a different way for not only you, but generations, if you want.
You've done this for your family. You've done this for you, but you've done it for your family too. And we've talked about this reward of having a deep impact on other people. Being a chain breaker, it not only heals us, but it can also heal past generations and obviously future. I mean, think about that. That there is some of your ancestors that are, in spirit, in, the spirit world,
right,
that are waiting. Like they can't fully let go of this pain until somebody breaks the cycle, because it started with them, or it started, it continued on through them. And to some degree they are waiting. I wouldn't say fully, but to some degree they are waiting to fully feel at peace about that. Yeah. And it takes a chain breaker to do that.
So be the chain breaker in your family or in your life. It's really cool though what you're saying. That process, taking care of the present, will heal the past in the future.
In more ways than one, right. and in many other people. Guys, we're not just making this stuff up. This is a very real, again, if we could see it spiritually, we will when we die, but through meditation and seeking and prayer, we can know these things and feel them. Kind of like my experience I shared earlier. It wasn't a physical experience, but it was more real, feeling this spiritual hug. It was more real than anything I've ever experienced in my life. And it was just beautiful us talking about this and being a chain breaker, and how you felt that past ancestor. I just know you, and I know you felt that, and it brings joy to your soul. It's how happy are we to be able to see someone let go of something that they've held on to for hundreds of years.
Exactly.
Whoa.
Be at peace. You like what? It's an amazing opportunity that we honestly all have.
And then my experience is I don't know if I've had it as deep as it's making me like, I know I can feel that. I'm going to probably do that soon. So thank you for bringing this up today. Cause I relate with you. I believe, my family, if my family's listening to this, I'm still like labeled to them from my younger years in a lot of ways. So anyways, but, I relate with you in that way of to some degree being a chain breaker and the joy that you can access from that. And what it is, it's a title of entrust. It's an entrustment. God or these other spirits that are still trying to influence people in the world, they now trust you more and can work through you more to impact people who have already passed but are also here now. And this is why letting go of pain naturally leads, letting go of deeper pain naturally leads into the final phase of our life, which is fulfilling your purpose. Healing the present or managing current emotions, then deeper work, then that naturally leads into this great purpose.
And by that time, you'll have this armor and these weapons or tools ready to go. So when you hit your purpose, you're totally equipped for everything you need. It's like a beautiful process. It's pretty well thought out, I have to say.
There's just so much deep meaning to me about this word that this is the hero's journey that we're talking about, that Joseph Campbell describes in his book, A Hero with 1,000 Faces. This is the hero's journey. And I don't know why I get a little emotional thinking about this, but if there's one title that is so meaningful to me to be labeled as, it is that of a hero. As a chain breaker, you are a hero. It becomes a spiritual identity. You've already been a hero to many people that have passed, but now you are meant to be a hero living to live an inspirational life. It's a calling. Anyone can choose to accept that call or not. A lot of people actually refuse it. And Joseph Campbell is pretty clear on like the state of what happens for people when they let go of deeper pain and they have this call, this important call, that most people refuse the call. Hopefully, and he's very clear about what happens. He's like, and we've talked about this, but whatever house they build is a house of death. And this visual of them stepping out of their house and all they see is a wasteland of dry stones. But on the flip side, if they accept the call and they're committed, and it's a tough call. People start to rely on you. We were talking about this. You're not even ready to accept this until you go through this process, because you have to be a rock yourself. Because people are part of a hero is a hero saves people. I don't know if that's the right word, but he really impacts people. But then he also lets people down. And that's part of the hero's journey. We can't be a hero for everybody or whatever. That's not our calling anyways. But my point is like people are start to rely on us more in a family setting, in a community setting, this calling of a hero. And we have to be solid to be able to withstand. It's not easy, very rewarding. But
yeah, you got to be built a little bit tough to be a port in a storm for somebody else, like
you got to be built differently.
You have to be.
With this emotional work that we're talking about. It's such a foreign thing. I think some people listen to this like, is this really necessary? Well, it is if you want to have this spiritual identity as a hero.
Right. If that's what you want, then yeah, there's a cost.
It's just beautiful, man. Thanks for some of those thoughts. I want to share this book from the prophet, this quote from the prophet again. I just like the way that to wrap up this, I just love the way that he talks about this. And this kind of goes back to the whole loss topic. But he says in his book, but how shall you find it unless you seek it in the heart of life? So how shall you find understanding, or he's talking about the secret of death. He's like, how will you know the secret of death unless you seek it in the heart of life? What does he mean by that? Well, the heart is symbolic of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So it validates, this book was written 100 years ago.
Right.
It validates what we're saying about, if you want to have this deeper understanding about, is there really life after death? Am I really a spirit inside here? You can't find it unless you seek it in the emotion of life. For life and death are one, even as the river and the sea are one. In the depth of your hopes and desires lies your solid knowledge of the beyond.
Can you say that last part again?
In the depth of your hopes and desires lies your silent knowledge of the beyond.
Mm.
So in loss and grief, we are meant to feel the sadness. What is sadness? It's a loss of hope. So if we feel the sadness, it naturally is meant to lead to hope. Like he says, in your hope and desires lies your silent knowledge of the beyond.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually can know what is to come.
Yeah.
Through the avenue of feeling sadness and seeking and asking the right question.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked
they're
about
kind
that
of
before.
It's kind of like they're all connected, you know, like when the first thing I thought of with hope and desire in the case of loss or death or something, from my experience, it's like a deep hope and a desire to know if you're going to see them again, to know if they're still there, if you're going to have another chance to talk to them. And what do those questions, where do they take you? Sometimes if you're asking and you have these, if you're processing it correctly and you're letting the sadness take you somewhere, these desires, like the knowledge that comes from those questions when you search for the answers to those, is really beautiful and really powerful. I think that's really cool that he wrote it like that.
It's beautiful. His words are really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
If you have experienced loss in your life and you're wanting to feel more at peace, revisit the podcast where we talked about sadness. But just to give a reminder, feel the sadness. That's the first step. Let it, you have this window, like we've talked about, allow yourself to feel it. And then after feeling it a couple times, or if it's heavy, revisit that until it starts to go down to a lesson, to like a 3. And then what is hope? Well, hope is being willing to ask the question that you need to ask to something greater than yourself. And that question might be, am I going to see my wife again if I lost my wife? That question might be, am I going to ever find love again? Am I going to be okay? Simple, powerful questions. What question do you need to ask that if you got an answer to is really going to turn this around for you? That's the right question. And I promise you that an answer is waiting in silence and tranquility, like we've been talking about. If you're asking the right question, if your desire is sincere, if you're directing it to a pure source, I recommend God or nature, but I don't know everything. So, those are 2 that I know work with, my clients and myself. So take that for what it is. And then the key is take it one step further by visualizing the experience. This is so uncomfortable for some people. Like, wait a second, I'm asking God as an example if I'm going to see my wife again. And you then want me to visualize God in the room and actually talking to me. Isn't that a little silly? Isn't that me just creating the experience? Yeah, it is. But your nature, I promise the nature of your spiritual self is to be a co-creator with this greater power. So you're tapping into that
Mm-hmm.
co-creation, and God or nature will take over, and it'll be a real experience. And how do you know if it's real? You'll feel this peace. You'll feel some positive emotions that confirm the truth of what we experience in our life.
From my experience, the positive feelings have led me to want to act on them and do more with it.
Yep.
That seems to always be a thing. I know that that's something that you gave me counsel on when I needed that, and it brought me to a very positive place where I was able to influence for good instead of just be influenced.
Doesn't it feel so awesome, man?
It
Living
does.
that right now.
Yeah.
You've experienced loss in your life. You've gone through this process of feeling the pain, asking the right questions, receiving the spiritual answers and comfort, and it has led you to be on this podcast right now.
Yeah.
So you're living it. Just proud of you, man.
Thanks.
Last quote from this book. And what is it to cease breathing but to free the breath from its restless tides, that it may rise and expand and seek God unencumbered? What a beautiful way to describe what happens when we die. Our spirit leaves our body, it rises and expands and seeks God unencumbered. And when the earth shall claim your limbs, then shall you truly dance. And when the earth shall claim your limbs, then shall you truly dance. How is he saying these words with such confidence? Well, Khalil Gibran 100 years ago, might be here in spirit maybe, is speaking this out of the wisdom of his own experience. Again, this is the truth that I have experienced, that when the earth claims your limbs, when I've lost close friends, they're dancing, they're happy, and they cannot wait to be a part of what you have going on and to be a part of this hero's journey for you. And their joy is your joy.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why in loss and in divorce and in loss of death, the person that you really love that you've lost, I know that there's nothing more that they want than for you to let go of the pain that has come from the loss, so that they can be a part of this journey, this hero's journey, and this purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Loss is not the end; it is the entry to. We all have to experience that. That's like the threshold. If you want to be a hero, you have to experience loss in your life, which we all have, and you have to go through the pain.
Required.
Requirement. I want to just wrap up the whole loss thing. We're going to finish by talking about codependent relationships, which is so random based on what we're talking about, but we'll weave it in. But what I don't think is random is something that has had a big impact on me. Is I have this beautiful person that I've been talking to lately, and she's so sincere at seeking God and seeking spiritual answers. And she comes in and she's frustrated and it's difficult, but she's doing it and she's not going to give up. It's just such a beautiful spot to be in. She has helped remind me of this, one of the most popular biblical sayings, which is, ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you. For he that seeketh findeth, and he that knocketh it shall be opened unto him. What has been a revelation for me is I've always thought before that these are all just kind of the same sayings that describe the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, God's almost like, homie, you know that's how I don't work. And what's been revealed to me that has been so eye-opening and has impacted me lately is these are 3 different steps. Ask and you shall receive. Okay, what's that? I think that's pretty slow. That's like prayer or asking the right question, kind of what we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Seek and ye shall find. What is seeking?
Actively looking for something.
Mm-hmm. That can be driving up to the mountains to have this important experience of getting an answer to your question.
Mm-hmm.
That can look like reading some sacred texts. It's an intentional act. This last one is actually the key, and I believe it's the most misunderstood, which is knock, and it will be opened unto you. I want to get your thoughts on this, but as I share a thought, think about, okay, just to use this visual of like, okay, God's up in the mountain in his house, or Christ is up in the mountain in his house. He's always available in that space. But we have to know what question we're going to ask when we go up there. And we have to drive our car. We have to seek. We have to make that trek. It might be a little difficult, might take a little bit of time, but we make it up there. Most people, they ask the right question and they take that journey, but then they just park their car in there. They're like, it didn't work. Nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
You now have to then go and knock on the door. I love this visual of going and knocking. It's that extra little bit of effort. It's that extra little bit of submissiveness. Knocking on someone's door is actually pretty vulnerable.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It's like,
that's committed.
I don't, how long is it going to take for them to answer? Like, are they going to be weirded out that I'm here?
They're just going to watch me on their Ring doorbell? Like, what are they doing?
Yeah. So it's an act of submission. And it's also an act of, we could call it faith or extra effort. To me, the most simple way to describe this is a visualization. Being a co-creator. There's so many ways to knock. In the world we live in now, it just seems like one of the most relatable ways to do it is the visual. There's always been two groups of people in religion and spiritual groups. Ones that know, K-N-O-W, in their mind, the truth. And then ones that G-N-O, gnosis, that know deeply the truth. And the knocking and it opening unto you is the G-N, it's the deeper knowing. It's the experience. I love what Christ said when he's talking to his followers. He says, who say ye that I am? Some say that you're a prophet. Some say you're this. And then one of the apostles, I think it's Peter, he says, you're the Son of God. And he says it from a place of gnosis, G-N-O. And then the Savior says to him, blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed it unto you, but God.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so talking quite a bit. I just think the visualization, there's so many, I'm sure there's other ways. That's like my go-to, and that's what I see work for so many people.
Mm-hmm.
But it just makes it so real. And it's that extra little bit of like, I'm not going to just sit here in the car and wait for Christ. I actually believe that if you sit in the car and you just are waiting out there long enough, I think eventually God's going to be like, hey,
you've been out here a while.
What's
knock
up?
on your
Like,
window.
okay, yeah, come in and let's talk. And that's fine.
Yeah.
That's most people's like religious, you have to wait. You have to wait all this time. You have to be patient. I certainly acknowledge that in some cases, but man, it's another secret. Secret number 3 today. If we're asking the right question and we're seeking and knocking, there he is. There it is. There we are. It's like magic. It's a superpower we get taught from, the master consistently. My experience is sometimes I ask questions that I'm just, the visual that I've experienced is sometimes, in my case, it's Christ will just smile at me. Like, okay, yeah, I'm not supposed to know that. Or, yeah, like, okay, I can't know everything. Like that's, I get it. That's fine.
I think that a lot of people get hung up on how they're getting responses to this seeking and knocking. I think it can be easy once you've driven, you drive all the way up the mountain and you wasted a quarter gas to get there, and then you park and it's cold and, he can only see you for 5 minutes. That might be disappointing to some. Or maybe he doesn't answer right away when you knock the first time. You got to wait a few minutes. I think that it's just something that you can't call how you're going to get a response, or how those things will be answered in your life. I don't think you should have expectations, but it's always worth the trip.
Always worth the trip. We're saying this from a place of experience. For me, it's always worth the trip. For you got to experience it.
Mm-hmm.
And I love what you said, man, of like, sometimes we do have to wait. I don't want to discount that for sure. But if, the waiting is really valuable sometimes, because it's like, it causes like, okay, am I really asking the right question? Even if we're not meant to have an answer, my experience is that when I knock and I visualize, like, I still get an answer that I'm not supposed to have an answer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Christ doesn't, God doesn't just leave me hanging.
Exactly.
The smile happens, or like, okay, come on, my friend, like,
Mm-hmm.
just be patient,
Mm-hmm.
take a step back, it's an answer still though.
Yeah.
So I think that we're meant to have that kind of, think about it. How close of we're meant to have this really close relationship. How close of a relationship would we have with this greater power, God, nature, is if, every time, like, think about a relationship that you have. How good of a relationship would you have with someone is if every time you texted them or called them, they didn't respond for 2 months. That's not a great relationship.
It'd get kind of frustrating after a while.
It's frustrating, and you'd be like, do they even really care?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that happens for a lot of people. They become a little jaded,
Mm-hmm.
like, it's, I might believe in God, or might believe in this greater spiritual, but it doesn't he doesn't do what some people claim he does for them. Knocking, all of these steps are important, but the one that is often I see left out is the knocking. In the 1828 Webster's Dictionary, the definition for knocking is surrender. In 1828.
Wow.
It's kind of cool.
That is cool.
Dude, thank you so far, man. This has been really meaningful to me so far. Just good reminders, I think that's when we're talking about what we're supposed to be talking about is me and you feel this accountability to, like, a reminder, like, we need to be doing this,
Mm-hmm.
and make sure keeps us accountable,
Totally.
And wherever you're at in this journey, it's a call. It's a call to we can always do better, even if we've, rather than saying I know the truth or I've found the truth, we really should be saying I found a truth. We don't have it all figured out, So it's just good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna wrap up by talking about codependency with no clear connection to anything else that we were talking about. Just a random bonus topic.
Yeah. This is a wild card just
to
pulled up.
wrap up. Most people to some degree are in a codependent relationship. How can somebody tell if they're in a codependent relationship?
At some point they need to have the other person's companionship in order to accomplish things or whatever.
Mm-hmm. I think most people intellectually know that, okay, being codependent means I need this person.
Mm.
And I need, it's more important for me just to want this person instead of need them. And so they understand that intellectually. Let's talk for a second just about what that actually looks like playing out, so you can take a true inventory rather than just an intellectual one. Okay. So how high are your highs? But more importantly, how low are your lows when your partner is struggling? I'm all about being supportive and being there with people. But if my partner, if my wife is really struggling emotionally, and that affects my ability to function or to work or to go throughout my day, It's a code. It's a sign of codependency.
That's codependency.
Yeah. No, don't get me wrong. Let's say my wife goes through something difficult and
Right.
I feel sadness for that. Like I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like, we should be able to have some kind of a grounding in ourselves when our partner's struggling. And it's so important because we can't lift someone up if we're down in the hole with them. And which is we've talked about before, that's the negative side of being in a codependent relationship, is that doesn't really help people.
Mm-hmm.
If you're stuck in the mud with them. So that's a really good, like, how low are the lows when, for me, like, how much does that affect me consistently?
It's like a good gauge.
Mm-hmm. You know what? This would be good. I actually asked ChatGPT about this. And I think a couple of these were really good. You feel responsible for their emotions. So the difference between like I'm supporting them
Mhm.
versus like I'm responsible to fix these problems.
For them.
Yeah.
Okay.
You struggle with setting boundaries. You say yes when you really want to say no.
Mhm.
This goes back to the lows thing, but your self-worth is dependent on their approval of you. What they think of you, how much does that affect you?
Mm.
It's important to consider what they're saying, but how much does that affect us, kind of thing.
Totally.
You ignore your own needs.
For the other person.
Yeah. Okay, so what needs are we talking about? Nothing should consistently come between these needs. Your need to be spiritually connected and to feed your soul and having these set spiritual time every day. Physical exercise is also important. You got to take care of your body.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the big two. Those are those are the spirit and the body. And then an extension of that is the emotional check-ins. If you're letting your partner come before those things consistently, you might just not be aware of how important those are, but technically you're engaging in codependent
Behavior.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I feel like all those things make a lot of sense. Like,
yeah,
they're not like when you hear it, you're like, yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about this visual. And then I want to ask, why is it so important to be aware of if I'm in a codependent situation and then to change that? Most people that are codependent, they, to some degree, they're putting the other person before their own needs. And so a lot of times the other person doesn't have motivation to change that unless they are seeing clearly how it's affecting the other person.
Yeah.
So I just love this, man, of going back to this book, The Prophet, Khalil Gibran. We were talking about this. The oak tree and the cypress grow not in each other's shadow. Just think of that visual. Too much shade, and this is true about cypress trees and oak trees, too much shade can lead to slower growth and weaker branches. Okay, what does that mean? Well, when we are investing too much into the other person, we are actually limiting their growth.
Making it too easy for them.
Mm-hmm. They need to know what it feels like to fall off their bike and hit the pavement and to feel we must know pain. Mm-hmm. They must know pain. We're robbing them of being able to get stronger and to learn from their pain and do what we were saying earlier.
Totally.
We swoop in. We see this a lot with parents and teenagers. Teenager fails the test. The parent swoops in with a mattress underneath them falling off their bike. And then it's this cushy fall. And they're like, no, they need to know what it feels like to fail. They need to feel that pain. And what I love about this leads to slower growth and weaker branches. Branches in nature of a tree are often symbolic of someone's or the tree's ability or someone's ability to reach out and to give. Mm. Those branches become weaker for them, meaning you actually investing too much into your partner means they are actually unable to invest as much into you, which I know, codependent human, you don't want. We limit their growth. Their branches become weaker. Becomes harder for them to connect in meaningful ways. This is happening. So go ahead. Talk about what's happening in the world and the disintegration of our community. Codependency is a huge part of that.
Actually, yeah. Just thinking about that, codependency is probably a big reason why we have a lot of those problems in relationships. I know I've seen that as well. And something that I really appreciate in that section of the book is that it says very clearly that the oak and the cypress cannot grow in each other's shadow. And we know what the reasons are now.
Mm-hmm.
I love that right before that, he gives you a picture of what it should look like. And he says, you and your partner should be as two strings on a lute that play in harmony but separate. Or they're two pillars of the temple that stand separate from each other but both uphold the roof of the house. I think that that's like such a beautiful, positive way as well. Like, you should know what the negative effects of codependency are, and then look at what non-codependency looks like. You're able to play these beautiful songs of life together, and complement each other with more harmony, more than you were able to do by yourself with just one note. You can make
That's cool.
more.
That's cool.
It's a synergy with non-codependency. And I think that's really cool.
I love this visual too that he talks about. Let it rather be a moving sea between the shores of your souls.
Ebbing and flowing back and forth.
Yeah, and I like, our soul should be its own island. And I love that visual because we can sail in between. We're living our own life and we're having our own experiences and we're having our own relationships, not cheating, but friendships. We're not abandoning those. And then, or going to work and whatever. And then we sail across and we share these experiences.
Right.
And we help. Yeah.
I love that. And another way to look at that is like, when it's everyone goes through seasons in their life, and two separate islands may have different seasons, and you could have a low tide right now in your life and they could have a high tide and be blessed by that, and both should be okay. Whether you're in a low tide and they're in a high tide, neither should be. You don't have to be in the same season together. And I love that it's like you can trade back and forth between who's dealing with stuff and who's not, and it's okay.
So awesome. I think the last thing before we wrap up is just like, another way you can tell is if your relationship is maybe consistently just really stale. You might not be having enough meaningful experiences outside of the relationship to share and bring this like light and excitement and these experiences that really cultivate connection. How can I turn this around if I recognize that I am myself engaging in codependent behavior? The root of almost all codependent behavior is I do not know how to fulfill my own emotional needs, and I'm trying to employ someone else to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So getting back again, the importance of this emotional check-in. What am I feeling? And what does it mean that I need to do? It will tell you, loneliness will tell you that you need to cultivate more connection. And that might look like outside of the relationship. And there's this weird fear, like, well, if they're doing that, like I'm afraid that I had a friend that their husband started going out, and
drifted off.
And that's what caused our divorce. That's not why. Having other relationships, your marriage or your partner, your relationship should be a piece of the pie of your overall fulfillment. I'm not going to say the percentage that's appropriate. I think it's different for everybody, but it should be a piece. That's why if that's the whole pie, then of course, when it's sour and not going well, your whole life is affected.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's only a piece, man, I still got these other good things, and I can actually use that energy to better support and help my partner through it. So anyways, getting back to the emotional check-in and listening to what your emotions and what they're telling you. And then as an extension of that, it's going to naturally lead you to engage in meaningful experiences and getting back to like hobbies and maybe some things that, just to, what if my partner doesn't like that? Because if you're codependent on them, it's most likely they might be codependent on you as well. They're not going to like it. I'll just tell you that right now. They're not going to like you going and playing pickleball or going to hang out with other friends because they're used to this dynamic. But you have to have the wisdom that, hey, and it's good to communicate this. Hey, if we stay in each other's shadow, we are not going to be able to grow and our branches will become weaker. And you don't want that. I don't want that. And so, we got to start. And there's balance with that. If you're listening to your emotions, you'll know, it's not appropriate for me to go hang out with the homies 4 times a week and let my wife put the kids to bed. Like, that's not cool. But once every couple weeks, once a week, maybe, I don't know. Like, if my wife doesn't like that, it's okay for me to say, hey, like, it's been a couple weeks. It's okay for me to do this. It's important for me to do this. I'm not going to say it like this, but I don't need your permission to do what I know I need to do so I can be better for me and for you.
Exactly.
And that's the principle.
If you have benefited from this podcast in any way, it would mean the world to us to have you subscribe, to allow us to keep it going and bring on inspirational human beings.